All right. Good morning, everyone. Let's get started. It's great to see everybody again. Welcome back. My name is David Severance. Glad to be with you this morning. If you didn't know already, our theme for this week is Summerland. And if you didn't know we have themes every week. We get together once a month and we decide what each weekly theme will be for the following month's discussions. And so we decide on the themes and then we decide on what are the discussions, and that provides kind of a context or some kind of a framework for what it is we talk about. So the theme this particular week has been summer and Summerland. So what we're going to talk about today is give you the chance to explore a little bit about what you think summer means to you. More importantly, what do you think it means to the people who work with you? So let me start by asking you a question. For how many of you is summer a kind of a special time of the year, something you look forward to, something where you have something you might like to do? Please just put yes in the chat box or me in the chat box. I'd like to hear for how many of you summer is a time with its own particular charms and interests for you. I see a mega yes from Josh there with about 6 exclamation points, so that's a big one. Who else? Is summertime a special time of the year for you, where you have certain activities you engage in, certain things you look forward to? Is it a season, that period between Memorial Day and Labor Day, somehow special in some way to you? See a couple more yeses. So when you think about what it is that makes summer a special time for you, what is that? I'd like to ask 1 or 2 people to come off of mute and just tell us what makes summer a special time for you. Is there something that you especially like to do or a feeling you like to have? What is it, other than pandemic years? What is it that makes a summer special for you? So please put something into the chat box, and I'd like 1 or 2 folks to come off of mute so we can get your input there. Please.
We have like traditions, that we do in our family that are incredibly meaningful, and we look forward to them, such as like spending a week together on the beach with family. And like traditions like that are like, I think about them and look forward to them all year long. And so I get so fired up and excited about it. Just kind of like, we all have our happy places. And so, summer has a few traditions that coincide. The other thing is, like, I just don't know. I don't think we were all meant to live in the Northeast. I live in Boston, and our springs are pretty short, to be honest. So I get so excited just about warm weather in general, and so really appreciate that season.
Got it. Thank you, Josh. Who else? Please put something in the chat box and let's hear from someone else. Please take yourself off mute. Let's hear, what is it that makes summer memorable or special for you?
It's me, Marlena.
Yes, Marlena.
Hi, sorry I'm off camera today, but I'm just not in the mood. So summer for me is travel with my family. My daughter sings with the chorus, and every year for the past 6 years, except for last year and this year, we've toured China, Europe, and everything, and she sings they sing all over, and it's a wonderful time. And then we go to Minnesota to be with family there, and beach, and a little bit of work in between. But summer is just like slowing down and enjoying.
Got it. Thank you. So it sounds like for both of you and for others, I see the enthusiastic yeses on the chat there, that you have some rituals that you engage in, maybe things you do again year after year because they give you joy, maybe time with the family, maybe traveling, seeing new places. And you do these things because somehow they enrich your life. They make it's worthwhile for you to do those things. I mean, you could sit in the office and skip all the travel and skip all the family time, and maybe you do sometimes, but the fact that you make time for those things regularly tells me how important it is to you. So here's the question for this morning, and that is, do you think that summers are as important to the people who work with you and for you as they are to you? And if the answer is yes, are you doing anything about that? Have you given it any thought? There's this concept from the 1990s that first came out called triple bottom line accounting. Some of you may know it. A lot of businesses kind of got into it at that time. And it was a rejection of the old idea, which is simply the only way to measure a company is by the bottom line, whether it made money or not. And the concept grew into 3 bottom lines. That is, can we be profitable? Can we be seen as the employer of choice? And can we be seen as the service provider of choice? And so the triple bottom line is really about, should people invest in us, like financially, or in your case, would someone want to buy your business? Do people want to work in your business? And does your business make money? And so for 2 of these, it's what we're talking about today. Is your place seen by the people who work there the place of choice to work? In other words, if I went to any of your employees or the key partners that work with you, would they say to, if I said to them, what's it like to work with Ali? Or what's it like to work with Josh? Would they say, I wouldn't want to work with anyone else? If they say that, great, you're doing great stuff. If that doesn't come out of their mouth immediately, there's some things for us to think about here. What would cause them to hesitate to say something like that? Or what, even worse, what would cause them to not even think about saying that? You have the ability to take the people who work for you or with you, and this is for the independent folks just as much as anybody else, and give them an experience that's so powerful and so compelling that they would never want to work with anyone else. Let's talk about how you can do that, because summer's right around the corner. Let me pull up a deck here. We'll talk through a couple of things. Make it a summer to remember for your team. Here's something that you can think about right now at the beginning of the warm weather that Josh was talking about. You have 3 months or so of time here to create an experience for the folks on your team that will make it a summer to remember. How do you make it memorable? Well, a couple of things you need to think about here. One, you can base your response on curiosity and creativity. That is, if you have curiosity and exercise it, and if you have creativity and exercise it, you have an opportunity to create a memorable experience for the people who work with you. If you're not curious or you're not creative, chances are it's not going to happen. In other words, whether their summer is memorable or not is completely up to them. You have no stake in it. You have no influence over it. The reality is you have tremendous influence over it because you're running the business. Whether you're independent or whether you run a team, you have tremendous influence over what the folks who work with you experience. And so if you're going to say to yourself, I'm interested in creating a summer to remember for the people who treat me so well and help make me successful, then that's the starting point. And you can ask yourself, all right, so how can I use my curiosity to understand more about how I can do that? Well, what makes a summer memorable? As defined by your partners. I asked you a minute ago what makes it special for you, and we heard from Josh and we heard from Marlena, heard a couple of things that matter a lot to them, and if they could do those things, they can look back on it and say, wow, what a memorable summer I had. And if we all think back to last year, chances are most of us were constrained greatly or even completely in what we would have liked to do to make it a memorable summer. And we could look back at the end of last summer, let's say September, and we might have said, gosh, this was the summer that never was for me, because I couldn't go to the beach that I like to go to, or I couldn't go on that trip that I wanted to, or I couldn't visit the family that I wanted to, or I couldn't have that gathering with my friends that I wanted to. And so at the end of the year, they're left with that feeling, you're left with that feeling that is, I didn't get the summer I wanted this year. And so start by asking yourself, do I want the people who work with me and for me to say that same thing this coming summer? Boy, I wish I could have had a great summer, but I didn't. Or would you like them to look back and say, wow, what a great summer I had. And Josh or Ali or Marlena or whoever was part of making that happen. And I recognize that. And I'm so thankful to work with them. I wouldn't want to work anywhere else. So how to make it memorable? Couple of easy steps here. First thing you do is take the 3 people or 5 people who support you the most or work most closely with you. Make a list of those names and book 20 to 30 minutes with each person individually. Set the time into your calendar and their calendar. The purpose of this is to use your curiosity to ask a couple of key questions, and here they are. First question is the same question I basically asked for you. Is summer a special time for you? Is it a time of the year that you look forward to, that has some special meaning to you, has some special experience for you? And if the answer is no, then maybe you don't need to go any further for this particular exercise that we're talking about today. But chances are the answer is yes. Summertime is special to me, which brings up the second question. Why? What makes summer special for you? And understand what it is that they're giving you. This is the second point here. Identify whether they're talking about activities or they're talking about feelings. For example, let's say that somebody says, you know what? I've got this thing that I do in my neighborhood every Saturday where, my wife and I, we're big foodies and we love to just have this cookout every Saturday, all summer long, rain or shine. Everybody gathers at our house from the neighborhood. People bring drinks over. We provide, food. We cook all afternoon and it's a great time and we love it. Well, that's something good to know. What do you do with that? We'll talk about that in a minute. Or what if somebody says to you, you know what? I have a Jersey Shore house and I love to go down there and I just kind of like veg out on the weekends. I get away from everything. That's my time away from my crazy life. And I'm a walk to the beach and it's so easy for me. I just love the feeling of not having to be tethered to my phone, be tethered to the stuff that I really commit myself to during the week. Or maybe somebody says to you, you know what I love about summer? I happen to live right next door to a beach and I get up every morning in the summer when it's warm at 6:30 and I go down to the beach with a cup of coffee and a book. And that's my me time. That's the time where I can just lose myself in the book that I like to read. And I spend that time alone because nobody's on the beach at that time. And then around 8:30, I just walk back to the house and I get to work. And so that me time where I can spend the time detached from stuff is just so important to me. So if you learn things like this, then you're in great shape. You're starting to understand whether the person has certain activities that matter to them, like a weekly cookout, or certain feelings, which is the me time, the time where I can just focus on and indulge my own interests. Maybe it's a feeling of self-exploration for some. Maybe it's just a feeling of relaxation for some. But they're telling you what matters to them. And so then what do? You have the option. How do I respond creatively to give them the opportunity to experience that? For example, let's say that the person says, I like to go down to the Jersey Shore on weekends because that's my place. That's where I get away from it all. And if they told you that they like to sneak away for 3-day weekends when they can, what if you said to them, what if you heard from them, you know what, I love to go down there, but I hate driving down all the traffic on Friday nights. It's terrible. And I know Sunday nights are going to come back and it's terrible. And so I try to sneak down there when I can on Thursdays. How can you, as the leader of the team or the key person who's helping influence their experience, respond to that? Very easily. You could say, how would it be for you if we worked out a way for you and me to work together so that everything gets done Monday to Thursday, so you could take every Friday off this summer? A person might say, wow, that would be like a summer like no other, a summer to remember. Great, I'm glad to hear that. Let's talk about how we can make that happen. Or if it's the person who does the Saturday barbecues, let's say the person says, we love to cook, it takes us all afternoon, then everybody shows up at 5 o'clock, we start the barbecue on Saturdays. You could say, what if we arranged all the showings that you typically do on Saturdays and we give them to others and you only have to do it on Sundays? How would that work for you? The person says, wow, if I could have Saturdays off to do this barbecue, or at least Saturday afternoons off, that would mean everything to me because I could get to the store, get the ingredients I want, get all the cooking done, get everything ready by 5 when everybody shows up. That would be awesome. And so you can say, great, let's find a way to make that work. I'm going to make sure that every showing afternoon on Saturday is covered by somebody else, and you'll do regular stuff on Sundays. Will that work for you? Yes, works for me. So let me pull this down. So let me ask you, how many of you have conversations like this with your team, with the people who support you? A conversation totally dedicated to you creating an extraordinarily satisfying experience for them over the summer.
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah. How many of you have conversations just like this, where you sit down with the express purpose of understanding how you can create an extraordinary summer experience for the people who support you?
I've definitely never done that. But this is a great idea. And I think it's like, even for our family, you know, people in business, but also the people just closest to us, how can we help them have the greatest summer, especially after not having one last year? I think everybody wants to just have an amazing time.
Thank you, Ryan. Remember that being the employer of choice, whether you lead a team or you just partner with others, being the leader of choice or being the partner of choice is something that people have to feel because they know what you're giving to them, right? It's not just that you have a good split with somebody and they make some money off it, right? Most people want more than that. And what we're talking about here is you accommodating the business's work so that individual can have something else in their life that matters to them besides the work. And so when that happens, you know, you might say, well, I'm afraid if I, you know, give them a great summer that my whole business is going to fall apart. They're just going to be goofing off all summer. Well, if you think that's really likely, then probably you're hiring the wrong people. If you're hiring the right people, that's not going to happen. They're going to help you get the work done no matter what. But what comes along with that is they're going to recognize that it's important to you for them to have an extraordinary experience working with you. And this is where that triple bottom line comes in, being the investment of choice, being the service provider of choice, and being the employer of choice. Let's hear from someone else. Have you ever had conversations like this with your team before? I'll take that as a no. Josh, I see your hand.
Yep. So like in summers past, there have been like one-on-ones like leading up to the summer where I've like pushed team members to be like, you know, if you don't get some time putted in the calendar, this summer can just fly by, you know, and suddenly you're kind of looking back and you didn't take that time for yourself, for your family. That's so important, that because like usually we're all kind of coming out of the spring market a little tired and worn, and it's easy. I think a pattern that I've noticed agents fall into is just not planning ahead to take that time, you know, to enjoy. And so like we framed it around that, but like and encouraging people to put in dates. And then sometimes, to be honest, like there's a benefit, I wouldn't say motivation, but a benefit in that, like if everybody puts their time in their calendar, like we can also plan out to have like not too much overlap where it's like everybody's out on the same day. But I think like, look, like this is what makes strong teams, and, you know, happy people and, you know, work-life balance, but all like, you know, getting what we need to live a fulfilled life, in areas that are coming from our business and team, in addition to a personal life. So having this kind of flexibility or encouragement or shaping it in a way of like, how does each individual, like, not like in my mind, I might think like, oh, going to Rehoboth Beach in Delaware is the way to spend a summer. You know, this is what you got to do. But somebody else's might be like, I'm all about the 3-day weekends, or I'm all about, you know, just making sure I get to, you know, get out on a boat twice a season, whatever it is. It's about where their head is at, what they want to do, and focusing on that, and like thinking about like, how can we talk through that? We understand what you want and make it happen. I love that and can't wait to have that dialogue.
Great. So here's a second piece that you can add to all this if it fits the way your team works. After you've checked in with each of the folks that are important to you individually, and you have a good understanding of what really matters to them and what it is you're willing to do with them and for them, then have a shared discussion with the whole team and say something like, hey folks, I've talked with each of you. I want you to know how important it is for me to try to create a memorable summer for all of you here. And I'd like to just share among everybody what it is I've heard from each of you, so that we can all find ways to make sure that we cover all this stuff. And so not only does each person recognize that you care about them, but everybody sees a very public statement and commitment to creating a shared experience that's nothing less than awesome. So after you have your one-on-ones, if it's the right kind of step for you, have this conversation with everybody, because it makes your commitment to their experience public. Same thing if you had a bunch of clients in a room and you were talking about your particular business's approach to serving them, everybody would see it as a very public statement of your philosophy about how you want to run your business. And everybody can get behind it when they see that it's absolutely true. Josh, I saw your hand up.
Yeah. We do like I have one-on-ones with team members next Tuesday, kind of like the quickie step back to back. So like thinking about like what this might look like in an effective manner. Perhaps it would make sense for me to send an email out the day before or tomorrow saying something to the effect of like, hey, looking forward to our next check-in on Tuesday. Would love it if you put together like any thoughts you have about like what would make this summer incredible for you, whether it be X, Y, or Z. I could list like an example or two, so that they come prepared to like have this dialogue and think clearly. Might help realize the best goal. Would you agree?
I agree completely.
Okay, great. We'll do that.
That's often my advice when you want to have a conversation with anybody on your team or anybody you work closely with that may not be the kinds of questions that are easy to answer off the top of their head, where they need to ponder it a little bit. Absolutely send it ahead of time. If you have dates scheduled, just say, hey folks, for all of our one-on-ones next week, I want to dedicate at least 20 minutes to XYZ. So please give a little thought. My goal is to have you have an awesome summer this summer, and I want to understand what you might need to do that and see how we can accommodate that. And that gives them a few days to think about it. And then you have the conversation, hopefully like they've got, what matters more to me is getting out on my boat on Friday afternoons, or what matters to me is, the barbecues or whatever. And as you listen to whether they're aiming for a feeling or they're aiming for an activity or both, because they really are a little bit different. If what somebody wants is an escape from the hustle and bustle of the busyness that's always with us all throughout the year, it may not be enough just to give them a Saturday off. It may be something more like, don't bother them after 6 p.m. in the evenings unless it's really urgent. Maybe you have a habit of calling them in the evenings or calling them in the morning at 7 a.m. or whatever. Maybe you can make a commitment for the next couple of months to just wait till squeeze that into business hours a little bit closer if it's not urgent or something like that. Or maybe you have, 8:30 in the morning meetings and they'd say, maybe for a couple months, let's do it at 10:30 rather than 8:30. So you can sit on the beach a little bit longer or something like that, right? Something that accommodates their particular interests. It's something that is doable and achievable by you. You don't have to turn the whole business upside down. But there are different ways for you to achieve something if they're talking about a feeling rather than just an activity. So as you think through what you're hearing, think about what it might be, and we can, there's definitely a way for you to work with that. Let me ask you, knowing the people that you work most closely with, what are the things that you think they would be most interested in having as a part of their memorable summer?
Say that again, David, one more time.
Knowing the people that you work most closely with, what are the things that you know or you think would make their summer a memorable summer for them?
A month off.
A month off. Okay, got it. So that's like time away. And maybe it is a month off. You know what? I mean, it's a joke kind of, but maybe it isn't, right? And so the point here is, are they going to say at the end of the year, that was a great summer?
Well,
and Matt made it possible for me to have that.
I just to follow up on that, I'm half kidding about a month off, but I think in the European lifestyle, like a week is a joke for vacation. And the first 3 to 5 days, you're sort of coming down off of your work focus, you're decompressing, you're starting to relax. And the second week is really when you get to enjoy it. I think maybe the happy medium is like a 10-day trip. Like you can bookend weekends and get away, and come back the following Monday. I think that's what I try to do when I take a real trip. But in all seriousness, I think it's good to have like at least a couple of those where you have like 1 week off and another 5 to 10 day off within the summer. Otherwise, it's kind of like, what are we working so hard for, right? It's just a rat race, especially in New York. I mean, everywhere really, because we're all busy. So I don't know, it's just my perspective.
think about how a person who experiences something like that and is fully truthful when they say, I wouldn't want to work with anyone else. Think about how much commitment they might provide the rest of the year, because that's how they truly feel. There's this concept called discretionary effort. And the idea, maybe I'll talk about this in another session sometime, but the concept is basically that there's a certain amount of effort that people are willing to and are expected to put out in order to basically keep their job and do their job more or less well enough. We call that necessary effort. But there's effort on top of that, which the person would expend if they were sufficiently motivated to do so. And that's called discretionary effort. And one way that we can measure the satisfaction of the people who work with us is the degree to which they're willing to commit to more than the necessary effort. And that discretionary effort is actually a huge amount. Studies have shown there's a big gap there between the necessary effort that they could put out, that they do put out, and the added discretionary effort, which they could put out if they were sufficiently motivated to do so. And so it translates to dollars. It translates to the extra phone calls they're willing to make, the extra time they're willing to spend, the way that they're willing to cover for something else in the business, as opposed to not. And when you're on a great team, people do those things. I like Matt's comment there about taking time, having people slow down and cover for each other, and it becomes contagious. That's a sign of some good things happening on that particular team. But what I hear from so many of you is the struggle with some of the people on your team that don't want to commit to the business the way that you want them to, or the way that you think they ought to. And if that's true for some of the people that you work with, then perhaps they're not sufficiently motivated to do so. And so this kind of work, if done effectively and efficiently, it pays off on the bottom line, because you have all these other wonderful months to get the great productivity out of everybody. And sometimes one experience like this memorable summer experience, giving the person that 3-week off to take that cruise that they've wanted to take for 10 years, that they've never had the courage to ask for 3 weeks off straight, but you find a way to be able to give it to them, and the business doesn't fall apart. That's a powerful statement of commitment to them, and it doesn't go over their head. It doesn't get lost. They know that came from you, and they know that there was a cost to the business in a sense, and everybody else's effort, but it comes back. But who else? I want to ask this question again, because if you don't have an answer to this question, it tells me that you don't really know. The question is, what is it for the people that you work most closely with? What do you think it is that would make their summer a summer to remember?
My mother really wants to go to Paris for a month. So, I don't think she doesn't think it's going to happen this summer, but maybe it's just a week vacation away with her and the rest of my family, and helping to set that up.
Love that. And what if there's some way that the CSC community can help send your mother to Paris for a month, right? If there were a way to do that, we might be willing to have a conversation like that and see how we could all contribute to her having that. That would be pretty awesome, right? What if, 50 different agents, 70 different agents were all willing to do something to send Ryan's mom to Paris? It's kind of like, crowdfunding or whatever, somebody has a tragedy and millions of people who don't even know the person very well just know it's the right thing to do, and they throw in a few dollars and the person, gets the college education or whatever. It's right there in front of us every summer. It's in front of us all the time. If you haven't traditionally done something like this, this is a great opportunity to practice this summer and see how it goes. And if it goes well and you can figure out how to make it all work, which you absolutely can, it's really more a matter of commitment than anything else. Then you have the rest of the year to think about other ways that you can make the whole year a year to remember for everybody. It doesn't have to be limited to just summer, right? It's a good excuse to start because most people like summer. And you have a 3-month window here to do something that makes it memorable. And if at the end of the summer, they look back and they say, wow, that was a really great summer for me. I know you made it possible. You partly made it possible. Thank you for what you do. Thanks for making it part of, my experience here, working for you, working with you. You can't ask for anything more than that. When a person gives you a sincere thank you, that's all you need to hear. So give it some thought, everybody. Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, I just had a thought. In the Boston area, we have a sailboat that is available to us, and a leader of a team could rent the sailboat and take out the team like on a Friday, like a Friday afternoon. And those are great bonding for people. And, you know, I think it's great. I mean, and of course the team leader would pay for it and so forth. I mean, I remember doing that when I was in corporate years ago, and it was such a blast. We had so much fun. They did it at a theme party of like the 70s. But not that you have to do a theme party, you know, don't make it extra, but just to go out there in the beautiful water and so forth. Be great.
I've done the same thing in the summer in New York. And, you know, that's the creativity part we talked about, folks. Curiosity, creativity, right? The curiosity piece is, you know, do I care enough about this person to want to find out what would make it memorable for them? And then if so, and then I understand what that is, then it's the creativity part. How can I help them experience what that might be? And maybe it is a sailboat every Friday night. Maybe it's a sailboat one time. Maybe it's send them on a trip somewhere. Maybe it's just give them the morning time on the beach so that they can read that book and drink their cup of coffee. Whatever it is, there's plenty of creative ways. You're already very creative. You've created your businesses in the way that you need to be successful, and you're doing it all the time. Apply that creativity to finding a way to accommodate this, because nothing's more important to your success than having great people who want to be there and nowhere else. Okay, everybody, we're just after the hour. I really want to hear how this goes for you. So please, after you've had some conversations or you've figured out how you want to do this, check in with me or Chirag or anybody on the CSC team and let us know how it's going. We would love to hear some stories at the end of the summer where somebody says to you, that was a summer to remember. And thank you. All right, everybody, go out and have a great day. We'll see you next week.